So we have Dr. Dheeraj Dube Prakashchand. So he'll be speaking next. It's a short introduction about him. He's currently serving as a postdoc at Georgia State University, Atlanta. He has a passion in the research which can be broadly categorized as computational biophysics. His research interests predominantly involve molecular dynamic simulation, which can effectively handle and model the interaction of biological relevance. So modeling the biological systems at their molecular level details utilizing the novel techniques of computer simulation. He worked towards deciphering the physiological and pathological relevant biomolecular interactions. So he also makes use of unbiased MD simulation as well as enhanced sampling techniques like metadynamics, umbrella sampling, and replica exchange MD to explore the conformational space of the biomolecular system at hand. So today he will talk about revisiting the non-reductionistic Ayurvedic approach in the light of modern biophysics. So you have 30 minutes. I will remind you when you have 5 minutes left. You can start now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. Just a quick check. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. So, I would like to start with a small disclaimer that I'm new to this topic that I'm going to present, and I would highly appreciate any kind of major or minor critical comments coming from. And so, having said that, I would just start off with these two definitions of health. One by WHO and other by Ayurveda. WHO defines health as a state of complete well-being, consisting of physical, mental, and social well-being, along with absence of disease or infirmity. While Ayurveda chooses to describe health as balance and connectedness between body, mind, spirit, and environment. So there are a couple of differences between these two point of views, and among them, the major one is the absence of disease or infirmity, which is mentioned in the WHO definition and absent in Ayurvedic definition. So the other important point is the balance and connectedness that is peculiar to Ayurveda. We realized during the course of this presentation that this point of balance and connectedness is very crucial and needs to be taken up very seriously if we are to really worry about curing a person or like dealing with diseases. So I would begin by talking about the concept of reductionistic approach in modern medical practice. This is a practice of analytical evaluation of natural world by divide and conquer approach. So the basic assumption is that problems are solvable by dividing into smaller and simpler and the smooth units. Since quite long, reductionism has been all-pervading in almost all of the major scientific disciplines and has been responsible for tremendous success. Still, there are certain limits to reductionism, and explanation must be sought to complement it. In case of biology, an alternative view has emerged where the problems are approached through systems perspective rather than dividing a complex problem into a component into its component parts. The systems perspective appreciates and composite characteristic of a problem and evaluates the problem with the use of modern computational and mathematical tools. So, in simple language, it can be said that systems approach appreciates that the forest cannot be trees individually. So while implementation of clinical medicine is system oriented, The science of clinical medicine is fundamentally reductionist. And this reductionism you can see through four of these prominent practices in modern medical science. The first one being focus on a singular dominant factor behind a disease or affirmity. Then second is overemphasis on homeostasis. Then third is inexact risk modification, and be additive treatments. So, much like a mechanic who repairs a broken car by locating the defective parts, physicians also typically treat disease by identifying the isolatable abnormalities. Implicit within this deep-rooted belief that each disease has a potential single target for medical treatment. For infection, this target could be pathogens. For cancer, it would be tumor. For gastrointestinal bleeding, it would be bleeding vesicles or ulcers. This approach leaves little room for contextual information. Like a young immunocompromised man with pneumonia usually gets the same antibiotic treatment as an elderly woman with the same infection. So in such cases, what happens is the disease and not the person becomes affected by it. Central focus. Our contemporary analytical tools are simply not designed to address more complex questions that would be faced in medical science. Like there is no query raised such as how do a person's sleeping habits, diet, living conditions, and stress collectively contribute to his or her heart disease. This would be one example. The another problem faced by medical science currently is an overemphasis on homeostasis. So homeostasis was a very remarkable idea introduced by Claude Bernard Buchanan, which is basically the ability of the body to maintain stability when exposed to stresses. Incorporated into clinical practice, illnesses is defined as a failed homeostatic mechanism, and treatment requires physicians to substitute for this failed mechanism by correcting deviations and placing the parameters and indicators within the normal range. This corrective treatment is adopted for a range of medical conditions from hypothyroidism to hypokalemia to diabetes. Homeostasis biased with reductionistic results in overemphasis on correcting the deviated parameter, which belies the importance of system-wide operation. There may be either alternate or less intuitive targets that could be more effective to handle. Also, correction of the deviated parameter may itself have harmful system-wide effects. Basically, homeostasis is the ability of the system to maintain stability and robustness. The smaller units could have a dynamic interplay and could still maintain the overall system-wide stability. And hereby robustness, I mean the capability of the system to perform normally when exposed to perturbing stresses. So, for example, as a consideration of dynamic equilibrium in the overall system, we could picturize circadian rhythms as oscillatory stable states, and complex heart rates variability could be considered as chaotic elements contributing and feedbacking to the overall system's equilibrium. Inexact risk modification is another problem that we face in modern medical practice. So basically, attempts are made to identify and single out the precursor factors for a disease with certainty. The common unidirectional one risk factor to one disease approach used in medical epidemiology has several limitations. For example, hypertension is considered to be a risk factor for coronary heart disease. Based on Framingham study, it is suggested that individuals with systolic blood pressure greater than 140 should get pharmacological and lifestyle treatment. But these kinds of study only measure a chance of acquiring this disease. Now, a country can have a 70% population having blood pressure lower than 140, and this population will have a higher case of coronary heart disease because of huge sample size. That is 70% of the country's population. Majority of the people from the remaining 30% population might not at all get coronary heart disease. Now, this is something called prevention paradox, which leads to twofold problems. Number one, people taking medicine because of the prescription based on statistical study might not get heart disease but could develop some other side effects from preventive medicines. Number two, because of the certain risk factors still unknown to the medical community, a majority of the population which is being pharmacologically treated is still exposed to the risk of acquiring disease. So this is typically a scenario where we often see the medical community constantly lowering the threshold of the parameter for treating the disease because they want you to be counted in the 30% population group. This kind of approach produces but little benefit to the individual. Statistically, maybe our medical infrastructure is doing a good job, but the individual is still suffering because of this. So in reductionism, multiple problems in the systems are typically tackled piece by piece. Each problem is partitioned and addressed individually. For example, in coronary heart disease, for like each known risk factor is addressed individually, whether it be hyperlipidemia or hypertension. The strategy is also extended to coexisting diseases such as hypothyroidism, diabetes, and coronary heart artery disease. Each disease is treated individually, as if the treatment of one disorder, such as coronary heart artery disease, has minimal effects on the treatment of another, such as hypothyroidism. While this approach is easily executable in clinical practice, it neglects the complex interplay between disease and treatment. The assumption is that the results of the treatment are linearly additive rather than non-linear. So we can conclude the basic differences between two approaches, reductionistic approach and system-oriented approach. So in reductionism, normalcy is considered to be healthy. Basic normalcy of parameters and indicators are more important. While in systems-oriented approach, robustness is given importance, which means the system should be able to perform well. A person's body should be able to perform well even under external stresses. In reductionism, treatment involves risk reduction, while in systems-oriented approach, adaptability and the plasticity of the system is appreciated, and in many scenarios, even if the parameters and indicators are out of range, maintain, the person may not require the treatment at all. Reductionism requires the bodily system to be homeostatic, while in systems-oriented approach, it is supposed to be homodynamic. Reductionism requires singling out one positive factor, while in systems-oriented approach, multiple factors can be accommodated in the model to assess the robust dynamics of the system. In reductionism, systems behavior is linear, predictable, and frequently deterministic, while in systems-oriented approach, we allow the system to have non-linear, sensitive to initial conditions, stochastic, and chaotic behavior. So these kind of system-oriented approach we do have in the Ayurvedic system of medicine, which is derived from ancient Indian knowledge system. I'll be very briefly introducing some basic concepts of Ayurveda. So, like we have a practice in modern science of segregating matter into two categories, inorganic matter and organic matter. Biological phenomena are better explained in terms of interaction between inorganic matter. Similarly, in Vedic philosophy of Sankhya, the gross reality consists of earth, water, fire, air, ether. Earth being the grossest element, while the ether being the subtlest element. So these five elements are in principle kind of inorganic, and although being kind of inorganic, they are able to combine in special pairs to form certain organic elements of a living system. And these organic elements are broadly categorized into three types: Kapha, Pitta, and Vaat. So Kapha can be considered to be made up of earth and water element. Pitta can be considered to be made up of water and fire, and Vaat is completely separate. It only deals with subtle elements like air and ether. It has no components of water, earth, water, or fire. Now, in Vedic understanding of reality, Sankhya Darshan is considered to be the base for all the phenomena around us, subtle or gross. Sankhya Darshan basically enumerates and analyzes the various elements in different realms, gross, subtle, and spiritual. Our existence is considered to be made up of five different layers known as Panchakoshas or five coverings. The physical body is a manifestation of grossest covering known as Annamaya Kosh. Our subtle realm made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego constitute the next three coverings known as Pranamaya Kosh, Manomaya Kosh, and Vigyan. The spiritual realm consists of the real plane of existence and is known as Anandamaya Kosh. Ayurveda mainly deals with the imbalances in the gross realm. These imbalances could also originate in the subtle realm made up of false ego, intelligence, and mind. For dealing with imbalances in certain realm, we need the we also need the practices of yoga, pranayama, and yama niyamas. Similarly, for restoring spiritual balance, we need there are certain practices prescribed, which are dhyan, mantra sadhana. Now, there are already many researches going on in the field of integrative and alternative medicines, and there are many publications also which show a direct correlation between prakriti and metabolism. The rate of metabolism is different for different people with different doshas. For people with predominance of kapha, the metabolism is slow. For people with pitta as the predominant dosha, it is fast, and for people with vaat, it is very low. A number of studies have demonstrated or hypothesized the link of Ayurvedic tridosha theory with various metabolic systems and biomarkers. And among these, some have even demonstrated the genomic linkages as well. One more study describes the concept of prakriti in aging, stating that the individuals which have pitta predominance in their prakriti have high basal metabolic rate and energy consumption, and also there is a high energy consumption, which leads to tissue premature aging. And individuals with kapha predominance prakriti have a tendency to delay manifestation of aging and have a longer lifespan. So these are some of the correlations that are being reported in recent research. It has also been shown in a study by Sarah et al. That the Tridosha theory of Ayurveda is mediated by certain nuclear receptors, mainly those related to androgen, T cells, and thyroxine, which are in study related to pitta. So here again, I would like to give a disclaimer. These are certain concepts I'm still trying to do research on. And these receptors regulate the expression of certain genes and thus have an overall control over embryonic development, adult homeostasis, and finally the metabolism of an organism. Similarly, there are certain works reported relating Prakriti's with genome. We realize that the need of the hour is also to bridge the ontological divide between Ayurveda and current science with the development of common vocabulary. Evidence is present and mounting regarding the links between Prakriti and various genes through which these associations work. Such links between Prakriti and genetics have been clearly elaborated by Patwardhan and Bodekar in 2008, their work published in 2008, which have now become the basis for scientific investigation related to Ayurvedic biology. They have even coined a fancy term like Ayugenomics. The basis for this was an earlier work done by Patwardhan in 2005, in which they demonstrated a significant correlation between various alleles of human leukocyte antigen genotype and Prakriti, where they provided rational and preliminary experimental support for the concept of an association between HLA allele and Dosha theory. In other studies, associations have been discovered between various genes related to inflammatory pathways and oxidative stress pathways in rheumatoid arthritis patients and their Prakriti. Other associations between genetics and Prakriti have been drawn out for genes related to drug metabolism, such as CYP2, C6, C19, where the genome related to extensive metabolizers was associated with people having Pitta Prakriti, while genotype metabolizer was highest in people with Kapha Prakriti. Also, it has been found that there are certain inflammatory markers which are found to be higher in Kapha body type individuals. Now, Prakriti types, as described in Ayurveda, can be considered as phenotypes that have distinct links with various metabolic pathways, disease susceptibility, especially that with chronic diseases, and last but not the least, with different genotypes. As these links of Prakriti become further defined, it is not difficult to imagine a time in the near future when it will be possible to identify specific genotypes that are linked to any given Prakriti type. This opens the door for an idea that has not been proposed before. It is quite possible that in near future, newborns can be screened right at the time of birth for their Prakriti type using their genetic profile, which is further correlated with parameters. Thus, a specific set of criteria using genetic markers and biochemical markers can be used to set up not only to identify extreme Prakriti type, but even mixed Prakriti types. Ayurvedic physician's job would then be at the extent of derangement and bring back the doshas to normal state. So what we have been doing in terms of parameters and indicators for a particular disease, we would then be doing it in terms of repairing the derangement of the doshas. Linkages of principle with modern scientific biochemical and genetic markers are also being unearthed. This is a very significant step towards integrating Ayurvedic theory with modern scientific findings, and it is quite likely that linking the Tridosha theory of Ayurveda with current medical practices can improve health outcomes. As a step further, it can be envisaged that in future, newborns can be screened for various Prakriti types, which will open up a possibility of creating lifestyles and environments that lead to prevention of diseases that particular Prakriti types are prone to. This takes the concept of personalized medicine further and enters the arena of personalized preventive health or personalized preventive medicine. Such personalized preventive health will result in healthy and more productive lives for children, which has also the potential to reduce the burden of a disease as well as the increasing cost faced by health systems due to rising incidences of chronic diseases. Allopathic medicine excels when it is required for treating acute disorders or traumatic damages to the body. Chronic disorder cannot be managed well by allopathic medicine, and Ayurveda is more effective in treating such chronic non-communicable diseases. So, in my process of like studying this subject matter, I have like certain realization that I would like to share. One is that correlation is not necessarily causation. Second, Ayurveda basically helps us to understand that we are not the body and we do not have a soul. In fact, we are the soul and we have a body which needs to be taken care. And ushering in these concepts would help us to introduce the Ayurvedic concepts in the modern medical practice. And having said that, these are the references that I used for like making this talk. Thank you. I really appreciate your patience.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dheeraj, for your presentation. So if we have any questions, any short, quick questions, then we can ask. Yes, there's one question from the audience.
Thank you for your nice presentation. My last question is, we don't have soul, but does it mean the soul doesn't belong to us, or we don't have soul? It's contradictory with the Bhagavad Gita. What do you mean by this?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to correct. We are not the body and we do not have soul. That's a wrong statement. We are the soul, externally covering called body. The real person is the soul, and the body that we see is the covering.
I think normally we say that I have a soul, but it's not like that. It's like I am the soul and I have a body. That's what he's trying to say. Yeah. Thank you for your presentation. Big round of applause once again. Thank you for joining us. And yes, so I think we'll move on with our next. The final talk of this event, final scientific talk of this event today